Hello. Welcome to the Actifio Masterclass webinar series. Today we'll be presenting how Actifio makes Oracle DBA's lives easier every day. Now our next webinar is going to be a great follow-on to this one. So if there's some of the more in-depth technical details that we're going to cover today that you wanted some more coverage on, you're definitely going to want to come to our next webinar, and that is the Advanced Oracle Administration with Actifio, and that'll be on May 9th in 2 weeks from today. We also have two upcoming educational engagements. We have our live remote Sky administration with our Education Services Manager, Paul Martell, and that'll be on May 14th through the 18th. And we also have the live remote DBA operations class with Najib Khan, and that will be from June 18th until June 20th. It's my pleasure to introduce to you a very special guest speaker today. Today, the webinar will be presented by Shridhar Mandapati. He is our lead Oracle DBA. He works with our global services delivery team. Now, Shridhar comes from a very rich background of very in-depth, very highly technical Oracle administration in enterprise environments, very similar to the types of environments that you, our attendees, are administrating on a daily basis. So he really brings a huge amount of perspective into what your day-to-day life is like, in addition to a really in-depth level of how Actifio works and how we can merge these two solutions to really provide you the value that you want and make this as easy and as friction-free as possible. With that,
Hi.
I introduce to you Shridhar. Shridhar, take it away.
Hi. Yeah, thanks, Dave. That's a wonderful introduction. Hi all, good morning. Myself, Shridhar Mandapati. I think I've been associated with Actifio since 1 year. And before Actifio, I think I used to manage and have been associated with many top MNC organizations on enterprise level. Basically, I think most of my career I spent on the enterprise DBA level. So I've seen a couple of issues and traditional challenges. I cannot really call it as issues, maybe a traditional challenges. It may be a slow down the schedules or slow down the performance of the systems. And of course, it needs a lot of resources to handle the situations, even though there are pretty common problems on day-to-day life, but still we need a number of resources to handle these situations. So as per my experience and using my experience from the enterprise level and using the traditional issues which I've faced and encountered, I'm sure it is common for every enterprise environment and all these things. And now we'll discuss in detail and what kind of activities a DBA typically a DBA life, and what are the challenges on traditionally he's going to face when it comes to the day-to-day activities. Okay, so let's focus on the DBAs have kind of issues or challenges in a traditional model in a life of a DBA in a particular day. I think this typically I'm trying to explain you about a day in a life of a DBA, right? So and maybe I think starting with multiple calls and maybe dealing with of course development, test and production systems. And as part of this, I think we might need to involve dealing with multiple calls to understand about the kind of a backup and recovery strategies, and maybe to deal the long-running backup issues, or maybe I think we will get a lot of flooding of requests from the development team and testing team about setting up the cloned environments, right? And which is again a hectic task for the DBAs to set up cloned environments using a huge backup copies, and it takes hours or days or weeks. So again, I think so, and one more portion, nine down the approaches to run the backups and recoveries and make sure that we are meeting the deadlines. And these are the traditional challenges. Day-to-day life in a DBA, it's completely busy and not able to focus on any major things. And these are the common problems and with the common activities. So now let's see. I think so. The day ends and we have a lot of things on our bucket, and the DBA, and what are the things we need to understand? It keeps DBAs awake all the nights, actually, right? And now I think you have a lot of things in your bucket, and pretty much I think these are common problems in any enterprise environments. And maybe when we are talking about backups, or when you're talking about recoveries, or maybe a table corruptions or data file corruptions, or a table spaces corruptions. When I say tables corruptions, it is very common problem in a development test environment, or maybe kind of sometimes maybe in a production environment, deleting data by the users accidentally or by mistakenly. And now we need to deal all these problems and we cannot able to like prioritize which one is first and which one is last, and because everything is important, and some things are important based on SLA, some things are based on important project schedules, and how do you deal actually? So by recurring thoughts of these common traditional problems, and definitely I think it keeps awake all the nights actually, right? It is not problem in a single night, it is not problem for a single night. And because enterprise, these activities like backups, recoveries, creation of cloned environments, dealing the corruption problems, and maybe sometimes you may need to create multiple cloned environments, or same cloned environments you need to refresh multiple times on a weekly basis or maybe a daily basis. So this is not applicable for only single night. So you will have these recurrent thoughts maybe so throughout the career, right? Because we need to understand like how to deal these problems very efficiently. So now let's focus on to understand and more in detail actually what kind of issues, or maybe I can say like categorization of challenges enterprise DBA is going to face on day-to-day activities. Okay, so if I'm just trying to list out the activities, so it's kind of a like long running backups, which is the biggest problem actually. So, and we'll discuss in detail in the shortly. And managing the, not only taking the backups, and how do you manage these backup copies, right? And if you have say retention maybe a 2 months, and how do you manage these backup copies with a 2 month retention? It is a tedious process, right, in a traditional enterprise environment. And now we have a copy, backup copy, and what is the next step? So creation of cloned copies, right, and creation of multiple cloned copies, or maybe you need to refresh cloned copies on daily basis or maybe weekly basis. This is again a challenging task when you're considering if your source database size is a huge. When I say like 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes, say I've seen 10 terabyte, 20 terabyte production copies creating in a test or development instances. And maybe sometimes you will get a bare metal system and without Oracle software, and you have to set up a cloned environment very quickly. You need to spend a lot of time on downloading the software, transferring it, and setting up the cloned environments, right? And another major problem is actually how do you quickly brings up the database in a disaster case, right? If a disaster occurs, there is a problem with a storage and the database suddenly gone down. How do you bring up your database very quickly? And if you want to migrate your storage from a old storage to a new sophisticated storage which you brought recently, so how do you do this actually, right? And maybe when it comes to the data guard side and replication, so you might be having multiple data guard environments or maybe a single data guard environment, and replicating in the logs, and maybe we need to focus on whether replication is happening properly or not, whether these logs are applying on the standby site or not. I've seen some environments from my experience, and the moment it comes actually disaster recovery, sometimes because of various reasons we could not able to bring up immediately within the SLA, or we could not able to bring up the recovery, and because of some problems actually, various issues, and we could not able to up the instance, or sometimes maybe we could not able to use the event DR instance properly, right? And also, as we discussed about like how do you deal the data corruption problems on a day-to-day issues. So this is at high level, I'm just discussing and trying to list out the category of challenges, right? So on an enterprise level, what a DBA is going to face every day, especially backups, recoveries, clones, and the disaster occurs, and how do you manage the corruptions? And let's now focus on actually like how do you resolve these problems more efficiently, and how Actifio helps you to resolve these problems. And we proudly say that, and maybe a one destination for all your traditional problems, and which we have discussed in the previous slide. And maybe Actifio intelligently, I think, manages all these things, addresses all these things. So we call it as like we radically simplifies your solution and addresses all these problems. Okay. Now let's focus on, and before understanding the traditional problems, how Actifio is actually addressing each and every problem. So let us focus on how Actifio is basically, I think, working as a product, like in this category. So Actifio is basically, I think this, as you know, I think it's, we are into a copy data virtualization category. And Actifio basically, I think, works under three principles, right? Capture, manage, use, or access, right? Capture, manage, use, or access, right? So when it comes to the capture, it is nothing but which we are actually protecting your database, and we are actually capturing the data from your database in the form of backup, we called as traditional world. So we are actually capturing data at block level in native pristine format. So whatever for example, you take your database, maybe running in some block level settings and block. So we are going to take the backup, right? We are going to capture the data from your database in a block level in a native pristine format. And moreover, we considered we are there with your SLA policies. Okay, so traditionally, if you are going with SLA policies for maintaining your backup copies, like as per your retentions or maybe schedule your backups, and what are the SLAs you are going to follow to schedule the backup jobs or to maintain the backup copies as per your retentions. And we do allow you to set your retentions or maybe a policies with a simple graphical user interface, right? You don't need to write any scripts, or you don't need to develop to protect the databases. You just say click and enter some values as per your retention and all, and you're done. So your database is ready to start production from Actifio, right? So, and once we actually capture the data, right, and when it comes to the manage, right, Actifio appliance, so this maintains this copy and whatever we are capturing. So it is more intelligently, I think, we are managing this data, whatever you are collected from here, and we do synthesize and we do create a synthesized point in time full backup image copies every day, right? That's a underlying technology, so which Actifio is using, and using this backup images, you can use these backup images for creating your clone environments or perform your recoveries, or maybe creating using for your DR solutions and your business continuity or mobility, whatever the form you want to use, and you can utilize actually. Like, so we do capture, manage, and access the data, and you can use these backup images in various uses, as we discussed about creating of the cloned copies or maybe other restore and DR activities. Okay, now let us focus on before discussing about how Actifio is addressing enterprise problems. Like, we have categorized the problems, how Actifio is addressing those problems. Let us see how Actifio works for Oracle.
Shridhar, before you go on, we do have what I think is a good question here in the queue. The question is, are we able to use unlimited virtual copies stored in the cloud? If not, could you talk to us about what the limit is?
Yes, Dave. Since it is virtual copies and it is unlimited based on the target host, as long as where they are actually presenting these virtual copies, right? As long as if they are presenting virtual copies on the target host, and if it is capable to hold the number of virtual copies in terms of RAM or in terms of CPU resources, and we are good enough to support the unlimited virtual copies on the target host.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dave. So let's focus on how it works for Oracle database, right? So now we understand actually how we are actually capturing the data in a native pristine format at block level. Now we'll try to understand how Actifio actually works for Oracle database. And you can see in the diagram, and which is highlighted with a background little light gray color, which is Actifio appliance. And the leftmost portion, which is a DB server, which we have considered as your production DB server, right? So now we have two things in place. One is Actifio appliance and one is your DB server. So we first deploy Actifio connector on the DB server. Actifio deploys this connector, which is a very lightweight, on the DB server. The connector's primary function is to communicate with the Oracle database, to invoke the RMAN APIs when we are running the backup. So that's the use of these connectors we are deploying onto the DB server. And as part of second step, so Actifio appliance, which actually mount a staging disk on your DB server, right? Which is going to mount a DB disk on your DB server. And then we invoke RMAN API calls to perform this incremental backups. Of course, the first backup, it could be a full backup, and subsequent backups are completely incremental in nature, right? The moment we invoke RMAN APIs, and it's going to perform an incremental backup and copy the changed blocks onto the staging disk, which we have actually mapped to your DB server. So once the staging disk data was copied to the staging disk, we invoke RMAN incremental merge to create a new virtual full copy, and then we will dismount the disk from the DB server. We will unmount the staging disk from the DB server. And when it comes to the Actifio appliance, and we take an internal snapshot to maintain a point-in-time synthetic full copy, right? So for the first backup, as I mentioned, Actifio appliance triggers a full RMAN level 0 image copy, and after the first full backup copy, and Actifio does the level 1 incremental forever backups by leveraging Oracle block change tracking. And after each incremental backup, Actifio performs an arm and incremental merge operation with a snapshot of the previous backup. Like we are basically merging with the previous full copy. And then when it comes to the sixth step, Actifio takes an internal snapshot and we maintain a point-in-time synthetic full copy. So now we have a complete point-in-time synthetic full copy is ready for that particular day. So if you are going for next day, it is going to happen the same sequence of steps, and you will have one more point-in-time synthetic full copy. So now hope you understand now Actifio is maintaining every day is actually a full image, point-in-time full image backup copy. So you can use this backup copy to perform the recovery operations, like an example clones, right? So when you are performing the recovery operations using this backup copy, Actifio instantly mounts this rewritable staging disk over fiber channel or iSCSI onto the target host, right? So that we are not actually physically moving the data, so we are virtually actually presenting the disk, and you can use and create a cloned environment, right? So that's what that's the part of recovery Actifio is actually providing, right? So as I've explained in the previous slide, when Actifio is actually presenting disk and taking the backup and unmounting from the DB server and again reattaching to the appliance, the moment we attach to the appliance, we are going to maintain in a snap pool, which is a primary pool. So there we are not actually deduplicating data. We are just maintaining as it is in a native pristine format. So as per your SLAs, right? You wanted to maintain your retentions maybe a little longer. So on the disk, maybe in a traditional system, on disk maybe you have retention 1 day or 2 days, and you will maintain maybe a tape side or maybe another storage side. You will maintain 30 days or 60 days retention, right? So you can see in this slide, and we are copying the snapshot copies to the dedupe area where we are deduplicating and compressing, and we are keeping the copies on the dedupe image, right? So this is compared with snap pool, it is occupying a less space because we are deduplicating and compressing so that you can maintain a longer retention in the dedupe area. Let's see, focus on how Actifio is actually capture methods. So I think most of the guys are from DBAs, right? So you will understand when you are actually capturing the data or when you are maintaining the data, right? So generally, I think we capture data in a native format at block level, as I explained in earlier. When you are dealing with data, especially for Oracle, I think we have two storage options, right? Either we will store data in an ASM disk group or maybe in a file system. Say, for example, if your source database is running on ASM, right? When you are presenting disk from Actifio appliance to perform the backup on your DB server, and we are going to mount as an ASM disk group. Since we considered your source system is running on ASM, we are going to mount this as an ASM disk group, and we copy this and we will unmount this disk group and we will reattach to the appliance. But whereas other scenario, if your source database is running on file system, so then we are going to mount as a file system mount point, and we take the backup and we will unmount from the database server and we reattach to the appliance, right? We do support both ASM disk group and file system capture methods. Okay. Now let us understand actually, so how Actifio, what kind of OS versions and what kind of database versions it supports. So Actifio supports almost all major versions of OS. It's like Red Hat and Solaris, IBM AX, HP Unix, OEL, SLES, and even Windows. Coming to the versions, and starting from 10G and all the latest versions, including 12C release 2, and we do support this Actifio running on your systems. And we do support standalone file system and ASM configuration, and rack with ASM configuration, and including Exadata appliance, we do support the protections. When it comes to the data guard, we do support the data guard protections, and you can optionally, I think many of you guys might be already running the database backups from the physical standby environment, right? So here with Actifio is also offering the similar feature, and even you can protect from the physical standby database as well. Even though database copy is a read-only copy, with active data guard, without active data guard, still obviously, I think when you are maintaining physical standby with active data guard, then only we will get a benefit of the read-only thing. So you can still perform the Actifio backups. You can enable Actifio backups on physical standby as well. At coming to the editions, we do support all editions like Standard Edition 1, Enterprise Edition. But the limitation of the Standard Edition 1, as per Oracle, not there is a restriction from Actifio, and you cannot actually enable block change tracking, right? BCT feature. As I've explained as part of my slide, how the backup works in Oracle, Actifio Oracle. So to make it faster incremental backups and block change tracking at DB level, it is a recommended parameter to speed up the backups, right? So that block change tracking, since it is not available, this feature in Oracle Standard Edition 1, you may not able to see the speed of the backup using an incremental, because by nature we are disabling the BCT, which is not available in that edition. But else Enterprise Edition, since Oracle is supporting BCT, we do support BCT, and we do support the fast incremental backups.
Shridhar, if I may interrupt with a question.
Yep.
There was a question about data encryption. The question is the data encryption algorithm already in place, or would it need to be coded and implemented after the fact? How do we bring that into place so we can use that?
Yeah, good question, Dave. So let me answer in two ways, actually. The encryption at database level, the encryption at a table level, right? So the encryption at database level, right? How do you encrypt the data when you're taking the backup and when you're putting onto Actifio staging this? And if you remember in the previous slides, I've explained about we are storing the data, a backup copy in our Actifio Snap pool, right? And maybe a dedupe pool. And we have a facility to encrypt your data as well when you're actually protecting the data, right? So this is clears the database encryption at the database level, how we are actually making an encryption for your backup copy. And when it comes to the table level encryption, or maybe a column level encryption, which I'm going to discuss a little while in shortly.
Thank you, Shridhar.
Thanks, Dave. Now let's focus on the categorization of fields, which we have discussed a little before. So let's see, and we'll discuss problem, and we'll see how Actifio is addressing the problems. So one is actually long running database backups, right? And in enterprise systems, right? And generally, I think and we do generally, I think, in a basic funda, like we follow running the full backup once in a week, full backup, and every day it is an incremental fashion, right? But it's still you need to run a full backup once in a week, and it's definitely, I think, maybe sometimes it may be I think the backup time may be little more even. It will cross actually because we are running a full backup. If the database changes are more, or if the database copy has grown, and you have to spend more time to take the backup, right? So still, I think to run this full backup, it's going to slow down your system performance for sure, because it's running for a long hours. And maybe I think eventually, I think you need to plan this running backup completely in offline hours, or maybe if in a busy system, I think we need to bear this low running system for a couple while till we complete the backup, right? And how do you address these problems, right? And as I mentioned earlier, so Actifio is actually takes backups always incremental forever in nature. The moment you run the first time backup, as I explained earlier, we are going to run a full ORMAN level 0 image copy, right? After the first full, Actifio does level 1 incremental forever backups by leveraging Oracle block change tracking. And the moment only first time you protect the database using Actifio, we are going to run full backup, and all subsequent backups are incremental forever in nature. Okay, so as we explained earlier, like we are going to merge the incremental forever backups, incremental changes with the previous full copy, right? Which we called as a previous full copy as a golden copy, right? So that every day we are going to provide some multiple point in time copies as a full backup image copies. You can see the moment you complete a DB plus log incremental backup using Actifio, you can see a full point in time image copy. And you don't need to use a previous 10 days copy and apply incrementals and all. Say, for example, you're running a full backup and you're taking a full backup on Sunday, and starting from Monday to Saturday, you're taking an incremental backup. So what will happen if the system crashes on Saturday? So eventually you have to restore full database, and then eventually you have to restore all the incremental, right? And you cannot escape from that. You have to restore. You have to go with the restore option. So it's going to take a lot of time, right? But using these point-in-time synthetic copies, and we'll see actually in shortly like how we are going to providing the quick instant recovery solutions using our backup image copies. And as an enterprise, I think we do more focus on taking the backup of archive logs, right? We are not simply restricting our tool to only deal with the DB or DB plus log backups once in a day. And optionally, we are providing another feature called log smart policy, and you can enable this log smart policy based on your RPO. Assume that your RPO is 15 minutes, and you can set in a GUI SLA tool 15 minutes, and you can enable take the backup, archeolog backups every 15 minutes. Basically, whatever your SLA, you can set that SLA and save it. We will take archeolog backups on based on your SLA timing, right? And one is main thing is actually the compared with the traditional, and it's very simple to set up. And you have multiple databases, you want to set up the database, you have 100 databases, you want to start production, you want to start backups for 100 databases, and just it is 2 clicks away from you. Actually, you just open Actifio GUI, you can able to see on the screen on the left side window, left side image. On the left side, that left topmost place, you can see the highlightation. This is your database, and you can just use your template and policy which are defined using your SLA GUI, and use some setting options like how long you want to maintain this retention, what is your how much size you want to keep for your backup staging disk, and what is the Oracle home you want to take this database. So these things you just set completely. It's a GUI. You can feel like you don't need to run anything, you don't need to develop any scripts to do this actually, and save it and run it, and you are under Actifio production. It is very simple to set up, right? So we are achieving this incremental forever nature, right? It's today we started with full backup. Even after 6 months, you just run with same incremental forever in nature, because we are creating every day with a multiple point in time copies as a full backup image copy, which is a synthesized point in time full backup image copy. So you don't need to worry about running full backups in between. You can always purely believe on this incremental forever in nature, and you can play with your recovery scenarios as well. Now let's focus on, okay, now you resolve the backup issues, right, in a traditional system. And okay, I have good backup place in my and I'm okay with my backups, but manageability. And imagine that your retention is maybe, say for example, 60 days, and how do you manage these backup copies? Ultimately, you're taking database backups to the disk, and eventually you have to move these backup copies to the tape libraries, right? And again, we need to depend on system admins or tape admins to maintain this tape. And there will be a big racks. I worked in an environment I've seen actually maintaining. We used to maintaining the tapes actually in a rack, and there is a tape admins actually. They usually, I think I've seen some people still maintaining the Excel sheets or maybe some tools to do some mathematics or do some calculation against maintaining these tape backup copies. It is not that easy actually. So if you misplace one tape in a wrong location, definitely order is going to it's completely, it's mess up actually, right? And now, and not only that actually, now okay, you work with your tape admins or maybe a system admins after spending long hours, and you got your copy and you restored onto your database backup copy, right? And how do you basically to it is getting a month-old copy or maybe a 45 days old copy or 60 days old copy, it is a little tedious process actually. Okay. Let us see how Actifio is addressing these things. Okay, and we manage these backup copies very efficiently, right? Any user who is having access to the Actifio GUI, he can able to see all the backup copies, all the available backup copies, which is under Snap Pool or which is under dedupe area, which I've explained earlier. You can see all the images based on your retention on these backup copies, right? You can just leave all your worries and behind, you can left all your mathematical calculations. You don't need to depend on your backup admins or tape admins to get the tape. The moment issue comes, or the moment you wanted to create a cloned copy using a 30-month-old backup, and go to the Actifio GUI and select that and right click and do a mount immediately. Just go, okay. And we'll see actually how this mount is going to work. And based on your retention policies, and we do actually display all your backup copies in front of on your screen like this. And you can able to see this for this particular database. I can able to see my backup copies, right? And which is the latest backup copy, which is highlighted in green color, and rest all old backup copies, and which is highlighted in gray color. And you can see a scroll bar here, so I can understand like how many backup copies I have it actually. And imagine if you are having a tape system, how do you, like if you want to restore, you need to spend a lot of time. But this is just a click away from you actually. On top of the moment you click it, it is displaying on the screen, and you select whatever the image you want actually, whatever the backup copy you want, right? And you do a mount operation, it creates a cloned copies, and we'll see how it is going to create a cloned copy. But the intention is to explain you about how you're actually eliminating all these problems and all these calculations. Especially this is very tedious problems. I think as per my personal experiences, we have a very bad situations actually when we are actually going into a month old or maybe at 15 days or 10 days old tape backups. Now let us focus on now. Okay, we understand about actually, so how we are actually Actifio is actually intelligently displaying all your backup copies in front of you just by a click, right? Now you have a backup copy, and take a traditional example, right? You have a backup copy and you worked with your tape admin, he restored the backup copy on the system, and now you may need to create one cloned environment or maybe a multiple cloned environment. And imagine that your backup source database is maybe a roughly I think 2 terabyte. I'm just taking a small calculation. I think nowadays I think database sizes are very huge because it's the people consumption is more. I think database sizes are more. So now you've just taken a simple example. The source database size is just 2 terabytes, right? And how long you need to spend this? Now you have the copy and your tape admin guy, I think, restore the tape backup copy from the tape to the system. And now you just need to start your DB cloned activities, right? Still, you need to spend a lot of time, right? You need to prepare your plan and start the restore activity. And it may take some time actually, because if it is a slow running system, definitely I think there is a performance. It is going to take a while. And eventually, I think you need to spend at least minimum of 1 to 2 days to complete entire restore and recover and up the database, right? This is just only talking about 1 or 2 terabyte database. What if you need to create a multiple cloned environments using the same backup copy on multiple systems, right? You might be having in your development agile methodology, I think you might be having some SIT running on one system, or maybe FAT running on one system, and testing is running on one system, and all these guys needs the latest backup copies, and maybe to deliver the deliverables. There are parallel deliverables. You need to create multiple cloned environments in this case, right? Imagine that we are spending 2 days almost for one restoration, or maybe setting up a cloned environment. And maybe I'm just giving a rough times. It could be more or less, but it will be a longer time, right, than the use. And so if you're talking about 2-3 environments, and you need to spend a week, right? And imagine that if you are multiplying the number of environments, multiply the hours, right? Now we'll see how Actifio is addressing these problems and very efficiently. Okay, so we have discussed about we have a backup copies, and I've showed you actually how the backup copy is presented on Actifio GUI, and how we are going to use this Actifio backup copies. And you can select the backup copy and right click and mount it. And we do offer a mount which is instantly mounts the using the backup image. We instantly mount the database onto the target host, right? Which is virtually we are actually moving the data, and we are actually creating the cloned copy. So when I say virtual, we are not physically moving the data, we are actually virtually presenting the data, like we are actually presenting the drive onto the target host, and using this target host virtual drive, and you can able to bring up the database, right? Using, so Actifio, when performing this cloned operations, when I say like cloned or instant recovery or instant clone operation, and you don't need to do a restore operation. You can completely eliminate your restore operations. If you remember, so I think I bolded my statements in a previous slides. And Actifio every day it creates, the moment it completes everything on the database server, the activities, and it's going to create a full point in time synthesized image, backup image on the appliance side, right? It is kind of every day it is a full backup image, right? And you can use this image and creating your number of virtual copies, and instantly we recover the data and we present the databases on the target host. And we'll see in the shortly actually how we are actually presenting. I'm just trying to explain actually using this backup image, how Actifio is instantly creating mounting operations and eliminating unnecessary data movement and speeding, and we are actually speeding the access of cloning, providing the cloned copies, right? Because we are completely eliminating the 98% slow step, which is a restore step, where we are going to spend 90 or 95% time out of the complete clone time. So we are completely eliminating that, right? And when you are presenting the instant mount copy or instant clone copy on the target host, which is exactly you feel the same experience. How do you work with a normal traditional database? You can perform all your DML operations, you can perform all your DDL operations, and from an end user point of view, and who is actually managing Actifio, apart from that, nobody knows actually. So it exactly feels like the same similar database, right? It is nowhere actually, there is no difference. Only we are virtually we are actually presenting a virtual copy onto the target host. So you feel the same experience on the target host when you're actually using this database. Okay, and now we'll understand a little more actually. So we have discussed about instant. Now we'll see actually how do you deal the data corruption issues. and how do you deal your restore and recover data file or table space issues. Okay, and in this explanation, we'll try to understand more about the instant recoveries. And if you remember, I think I explained in the previous slide, so using the backup image and using this complete GUI feature, and you can instantly create a mount copy or cloned copy onto the target database server on the same where the source was running. You can select any of the host and you can create this instant clone, right? So when you are actually creating this instant clone, Actifio is also offering a roll forward facility. It's not simply just using a backup image and creating a clone. And you have a wonderful option, and you can choose your roll forward time, and using this, and whatever the SLA policy. If you remember, I think I've explained SLA RPO policy, where you can utilize and run your archeolog backups, and you can roll forward using the additional archeologs, and you can recover your database on the instantly. You can clone your database on the target host using this additional recently generated archeologs as well, right? So these can be mounted on any Oracle server. The only prerequisite on the source and target database server versions and the OS must be equal to run a smooth instant clone operation, right? So as part of this instant clone, Actifio offers two types of clonings, like two types of mounts. One is standard mount and another one is application aware mount. Let's see what is standard mount. As part of standard mount, what Actifio is offering on the target host. So as part of standard mount, Actifio creates the all artifacts drive onto the target host. So when I say all artifacts, since I think most of you guys are DBAs, and you must be, I think, aware of what are the things we need to create a clone environment, right? We need database backups, we need any archeolog backups, we need control file backups, we need server parameter file or P file, right? So these all are four, we call it as a pack, which are artifacts to create any cloned environment, even in a traditional method. So all these four artifacts we are going to mount as part of standard mount onto the target host. And in a standard mount, we are not actually bringing up the database automatically, but we are presenting all the required artifacts for a cloning activities onto the target host, right? So, and requires a manual intervention to bring up the database. Okay.
Shridhar, if I could interrupt for a sec, I do have a question here in the queue. Actually, two, if we could just take a moment. The first question is, can the virtual copy on the target host be shut down and restarted when needed without having to remount the virtual image?
Exactly, Dave. I think we can do whatever that's what, like as I explained, like you can feel like a same like your traditional database, and you can shut down and you can restart. You do whatever you want to do with your traditional database like that. You can do the same operations again with your virtual copy as well. There is no difference. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on. You're saying there's no difference?
Yeah, there is no difference between maintaining a traditional database and this virtual database in terms of like managing or maybe shutting down or restarting and backups, and you don't feel any difference between the virtual and traditional and this virtual.
Perfect. And I do have one more question on this section, and that is, can you tell us about how Actifio recovers a table from a full RMAN backup, just the table?
Yep. I think we are just a slide ahead. The next slide, I think, in the same way, the same thing we are going to explain. Okay, just bear with me. So,
great, thank you.
Thank you. So Actifio offers, as I explained, two mounts and standard mount and what application aware mount. I'm just recollecting standard mounts. Like we are actually mounting the required artifacts onto the target host where you wanted to perform the mount, and we are just mounting the required artifacts. And using that, a manual intervention is required to bring up the database. And just pause here and let's see it, and we'll come back to this and what is the use of this, why you need manual intervention. Okay, let's discuss about and let's see the screen actually. So you select out of all backup copies, you select the image and do the mount operation, and a mount screen appears here. You just need to enter a couple of values like label, which is a text, and on the which host you wanted to mount this image, and what is the mount point you wanted to select on the target host, which is optional. And if you are not passing this mount point, Actifio will create a default mount point. You don't need to worry about. And you click this mount, and automatically you can see on the target host, after a minute or 2 minutes, you can see all these artifacts are going to create as a form of drive. If it is a file system database on the target, it is going to create a file system mount point and keeps all the data files, archival backups, SP file backup, or control file backup. If it is a ASM disk group, means ASM is running on the target host, it is going to mount a ASM disk group on the target host and keeps all the required artifacts. And let us see what is AppAware mount, and we'll answer the table recovery question. So this AppAware mount, which allow you to quickly bring a database online, right? So when you're performing a standard mount, we are actually mounting required artifacts on the target host where you want to perform, where we want to create a cloned copy. But we are not bringing up the database online. Through application aware mount, you can achieve this functionality. You can bring up the database online. This is completely automated. Like, you just need to use the GUI and enter some values and click next and submit and wait for a couple more minutes, and you can see your virtual cloning irrespective of your source image size, right? And let us see how it is actually. And this is an Actifio screen, and imagine that you are selecting this image and you're running a mount, and a mount screen appears, and you will enter some values here, and that, say if it is a, for example, if it is a data this ASM environment, you just give a data ASM disk group name if you want to specify it, or else you can ignore it and we create a default ASM disk group name. So, and you can enter a couple of values here which I'm highlighting, and you just press, instead of mount, you just press AppAware mount, and it is going to display another screen which is mount options, right? And what is the database name you wanted to give for this mount, right? Say, for example, demo database. And what is the username owning this Oracle software on the target host where you are performing this cloning? And what is the Oracle home directory and TNS admin paths you wanted to use on the target host? And this is the reason you might be having multiple Oracle homes running on the same system on the target host, right? It is not common that, and many systems might be having multiple, one is 11G home you can have, and 12C release 2 home you can have. But you wanted to create this cloned copy on 12C release 2 home, and you select that home and a TNS admin path, and you can enter all these values. And because these all are optional, which are not marked with red, and all these are optional. And you can even define your SGA size or memory market size or redo size or FREA size, DB recovery file test, and how much you want to keep share pool size, and couple more options you can use as a just GUI, and you click the next button and the mount is going to complete, and you can see a database is running on the target host. This is completely automated, just only a few clicks away from that. And you just need to submit only the required things, and you need to enter your database name and couple more things and submit, and just take a break 15-20 minutes. You can come back and see your database will be up and running. This is, I'm talking about even your database size is, say, for example, 10 terabyte or 20 terabyte. Now, quickly, I think just at a glance, let's compare actually the two mounts actually, which I've explained. One is a standard mount and one is AppAware mount. How do you utilize this actually? What are the uses basically? And standard mount, as you all know, we are just mounting all the required artifacts on the target host. And what is the reason this? We are only mounting this standard mount. We are not actually bringing up the database like application aware mount. Because, say, for example, on your source side, one data file got corrupted, or maybe one table space got corrupted, right? So in this case, you just need to do a standard mount. It will complete in 2 minutes and catalog those standard mounts. And we will have enough runbooks, and we'll actually provide along with the product, and you can have a nice documentation about performing all these scenarios actually. So you can you can do a standard mount. You will get all the artifacts on your source, and now you take and you can recover whatever the data file got corrupted or whatever the table space has been corrupted, and you can use these backup copies and catalog it and run restore and recovery, and it is done. Again, you don't need to spend a lot of time on searching your backup copies and bringing from tapes or all, right? You can completely avoid. Instantly you can do this. You can utilize this instant scalable recovery options, just doing a mount option, a normal standard mount option, or maybe application aware mount option. So application aware mount, right? So one is, if you want to quickly create a cloned environment, go with application aware mount, right? You don't have to anything require like table spaces or data files. Then application aware mount, you just click it and select options and just submit it, and it will create a cloned copy. If you want to create a quick and developers coming and I want to test something, it is a serious issue on the production, and quickly you can create a cloned copy and give it to him. It takes hardly, I think, 15-20 minutes. It's based on your available Oracle X, may take little more, but it takes just generally normal time unless you have a more Oracle logs to recover, right? So, and you can, and another thing, you can use this AppAware mounts when you're actually, we are going to discuss in the next slide. So you can able to automate this cloning process. So in that automation, you can use this AppAware mounts to, if you want to automate your cloning processes, which you are going to discuss in detail in the next slide. And coming to the table data, right? So to get the table data back to the production, so the data has been deleted and the user has been complained about the data. So now the DBA has been a jeopardy because the table is pointing to a table space, and which is unfortunately the size of the table space is 1 terabyte. Just I'm giving an example, or maybe a 500 GB, right? It is not so simple to recover the table, right? You have to get the table space back up and create some test environment, and restore it, recovery it, and you have to do a lot of skippings and all because only you are bringing up the database with single table space. Then after long hours, you take an export of the table from the test environment and copy onto the production, right? When you are going with Actifio, you can just quickly perform an AppAware mount. As I mentioned here, for example, the user compliant today, April 25th, maybe 8 p.m., right? User has compliant at this time, and he deleted the data at around some 4 p.m. You can select a previous day image copy and do a roll forward till this time using an AppAware mount, and within 15-20 minutes, your table is ready, right? So you can just take an export and import the table back. And
Shridhar, if I may, good question here in the queue. The question is, if I have to restore a database with just one table space, where is that table located? And could Actifio recover just that table space?
Okay, so the granularity for this recovery is actually table space or maybe a data file level. The granularity of recovery not at table level in a GUI option, right? Hope you're getting. So let me explain this. So if I understand question, like the point is like, how do I recover my table back, which is pointing to a table space? Is that right? So as I've explained earlier, you can do an AppAware mount, complete AppAware mount, right, on the test system. Because if you're looking for only the table to recover, just recover the data and you can do an AppAware mount and export and import onto the backup and back to the thing. Or if you want to really looking in the question, so if you want to really looking for a table recovery, which is a feature in the 12C, then you can do a standard mount and get the files onto the standard mount drives, and you can catalog it and do a table recovery, which is a 12C feature, right? So hope I answered your question.
Thanks, Shridhar. Please continue on. I'll ask the person asking the question to just kind of restate for us, and we'll follow up in email for a bit more thorough answer.
Sure. Thank you, Dave. Yeah. And let us see actually now we understand actually how we are actually using Actifio to create instant scalable recoveries and instant clones, and which is just a 15 minutes or 10 minutes away from you by a click, right? And now we need to focus on, and okay, now I realized actually Actifio is doing good and we are creating multiple cloned copies and using instant clone, we are reducing the time and we are creating multiple clones. But I have one more requirement. And my developers and testing team is crazy. I think they are working on different modules, and they want a different databases and different test data, which is there in the production. Because we want to test this functional completely. It's a functional testing against a production copy, right? It's a good question, right? So the answer is, and how do we automate this cloning process, right? You create in a traditional system, you created a cloned copy today. After spending long hours, finally your database is up and running, your cloned copy is ready, and you went to home with the relax mode. And you get a call immediately from your manager, hey, tomorrow again 8 o'clock we have to do the same operation. Then you'll get scared, right? So how do you automate this cloning process? How do you sleep with completely, I think, switch off your mobiles, and you can just automate this schedule, and how Actifio is actually doing this. And there is a concept, I think we are providing a unique feature which is called as a workflow, and using this feature we are allowing you to completely automate this access to the captured Oracle data. So when I say captured Oracle data, and you can completely utilize this workflow feature to automate your clone copies, right? You know now AppAware mount, how you are bringing up the database automatically, and using this AppAware mount as a source, and you can automate this AppAware mount refreshes, right? You have a GUI tool and just set this app aware mount and schedule every day morning 8 o'clock and go home, and you can see every day morning it refreshes, right? Every day it takes the recent backup copy from the production, which is completed, and which is the source for this app aware mount, which is the source for this automation access, and it's going to refresh the workflows, right? Let me explain in detail actually, right? In this workflows is basically, if you want to like create multiple as part of use case, if you want to set up test and development environments for analytics, reporting, or maybe multiple things, and there is a sensitive data on your production system, and when you are creating cloned copies, and this is again, DBAs are generally spending long hours. When you are creating a 4 or 5 cloned environments, again, it's completely a missed time. So when you're getting a production copy, and it might be having a PCA data or PIA data, and it is a violation, it is if you're actually moving this data to dev and test systems, right? So whenever you are doing this cloning environments, and sometimes we need to this complete in a staging environment because of PCI issues, and apply these scrubbing scripts. And maybe I think if you're doing in a target cloned environments, once you're completing the cloning copy in a traditional way, and you need to deploy all these, you need to apply the scripts like update scripts to scrub your data, PCI data, or mask your PCI data, right? And using this workflow, not only automating the creation of the clones, and you can also utilize these workflows actually to apply the masking script. So you can automate this masking the data or scrubbing the data using this workflow concept. Okay, let me explain in categories of the workflows. And Actifio provides 2 types of workflow, which is a direct mount workflow and a live clone workflow. Let us see and first how a live clone workflow works actually, right? So the live clone workflow is basically like, it is a capability to refresh your cloned copy incrementally, right? For example, you created a live clone image. I think only thing I just wanted to highlight here, the live clone, apart from the standard mount and mount, which is not occupying the space, but when you create a live clone, and we are physically moving the data off as part of live clone, we are physically moving the data to the target host. Okay, so then we are going to create this live clone database. We are going to up this live clone database for applying the scrubbing scripts or maybe a masking scripts. Then using this live clone image, you can create n number of virtual databases. Again, you can create n number of virtual clones. Okay, and we will understand in the next slide and how you are actually going to achieve this. And you can see this is the GUI of setting up a workflow, and this is for a live clone. And you just need to fill a couple of things and save it, and it is ready for automating your access, automating your creation of your workflows and clones. And now let's see in detail actually how this direct mount and live clone mounts works. Okay, so as I said, like when you're actually mounting this, right, when you're actually this leftmost portion is actually your source DB server, which is a production DB server. And imagine this first orange box is actually, this drum is actually a snap, which is an Actifio backup. So assume that this is a recent backup snap which I have collected from this database. And you can use this snap now to create workflows, to automate the initial workflow actually, right? And the initial workflow, you can go with your direct mount or you can go with your live clone mount. If you are going to create a direct mount, and you just need to set up few things which I've explained earlier in the screen, and you save it, and your direct mount is ready. And your direct mount is nothing but finally you are going to create an app aware mount. The first time you are just creating an app aware mount, but the beauty is actually you can schedule this. Say for example, if you are scheduling at morning 8 a.m. So every day at 8 a.m. it is going to pick up the latest backup snap from the production. It is going to create the app aware mount. The creation, the previous image copy, the previous app aware mount copy, it is going to unmount and delete, and it's going to create a fresh app aware mount, right? Even though it is unmounting, deleting, and creating a fresh app aware mount, it will not take more than 15 or 20 minutes based on your archival logs, right? Even though irrespective of your DB size is 10 TB or 20 terabytes. But if you have any sensitive data, right? If you have any PCA data, I don't want to give my snap directly to the developers as part of direct mount and create a mount and use that mount point or use that clone database for development and test access, right? And I do have some PCA and sensitive data before giving it to the developers as instant mounts, virtual cloned copies, and I wanted to mask that in a live clone image, right? And you have a capability to create a live clone image and apply your masking script. You don't need to apply this masking script even manually. You just prepare your script and put the script location in a path, you can able to just submit and save it, and every time it is running the live clone copy, and it is going to apply the scripts at the end, right? So then using this live clone image, once this live clone image is ready with your masking data, then you can use this same image like your this backup image, and you can create n number of virtual mounts, right? The beauty, you're reducing a lot of time. Otherwise, if you're creating multiple clone environments parallelly, and you have to again on your local database, you have to apply scrubbing script and multiple times, right, on each and every environment. You don't have a luxury to create one more environment enter between and use that environment and take an export and import here. It's a tedious process. And using this, you can completely automate this orchestra, right? The moment you even enabling, even passing this update scripts or whatever it is, we call it as a post scripts. Post is nothing but the moment you complete this live clone image up and running with the databases up and running, you can apply the scripts. This is completely automated orchestra. You don't need to anything run in a manual. The first time you set all these things and schedule it and just leave it, it is going to complete automatically, right? So next time, if you are wanted to refresh the live clone every day morning next time, and this will going to refresh only the incrementally. You don't need to again refresh all the things. It's just going to refresh incrementally from the recent back images and the additional, the incremental backup images. It's going to just refresh incrementally, right? And again, so if you want to again refresh these mounts after a certain time, and you can schedule in that way. Actually, you can mount this live clone image and schedule and refresh these copies at this particular time. You can able to achieve this using this workflow, right? So the bottom line, I think if you have any questions, please bear with us. And I think there will be from now to 2 weeks from now, I think there will be a detailed sessions, technical sessions on each topic, and you will get more details like on each specific scenario, right? So using this workflows, using this direct mount and live clone, you can achieve and you can automate your complete accessing of the data. And now you understand the clones, right? And using workflows and one more ahead, actually, you can automate this cloning process, right? And now you see at glance compared with the traditional way and Actifio way. It's on a traditional way, right? When you're setting up an environment, for an environment, you have to spending with developers and understanding the size, maybe involvement of management, and need to work with the DBAs and involve the sysadmins for storage and storage admins. And maybe you need to put some schedules and how do you create multiple environments? How do you going to clone this environment? It takes a number of days, number of hours. It actually, so it may be sometimes it may be delays your project schedules, right? So how do you efficiently we manage? We'll see in the right hand side figure of Actifio way. So if you see Actifio way, and you can use apply SLAs to the application and DB, which is nothing but retention policies and how long you want to keep on snap pool and redo pool, and how do you automate the app clone process, app aware mount clone, how do you want to create the cloned copies in automatical way by setting workflow. And on top of this workflow, if you have any PCA data, you can apply this masking data using PostScript and mount onto the target host. And this is just a minutes, actually. It will take hardly a minute, actually. The moment you decide you want to do something using this automation cloning process and all, it is just complete in minutes. Just compare on the left-hand side figure, you need to spend on maybe a days and weeks, and the right-hand side figure, exactly, believe me, it is definitely, I think you can achieve this in minutes. And another thing with in terms of storage, right? If you see this diagram, and here I'm creating 3 test environment from a source 3 terabyte database, right? I need 3 terabyte everywhere. So total 3 into 7, it is almost end of the day. I'm spending 21 terabyte for my storage, right? It's a huge storage I'm spending on my development and test activities, right? So now if you see the Actifio solution, so we are actually virtually providing the databases, right? We are unnecessary data movement, we are eliminating, and we are creating databases virtually, right? We are presenting the copies virtually. You can use it like a same traditional database. And hardly you see this virtual databases, consumption is very less. The moment I complete all these 7 databases ready, including the source database, and the source is 3 terabyte, I'm going to consume around some 3 terabytes, some plus 1 GB or 2 GB, or hardly, I think it's not more than 10-15 GBs, right? So you can see the storage efficiency. So we are reducing almost, compared with when you are comparing with 6 or 5 environment, this slide, and we are almost 7 times more storage efficiency we are providing than your traditional system. And you can even calculate the time, actually, that since you are DBS, you know how much time you're going to spend on each clone, and how do you automate, and how we are presenting this virtual clones, that you are the best guys to calculate this right-hand figure of the minutes. Okay, now let us focus on actually how in terms of restore, right? So when the disaster occurs on the primary, right? Say for example, you don't have this is a critical UAT environment, and because you know, definitely I think in enterprise we will not have luxury to set up data guard for even development, data guard for UAT and all, right? It is not really possible. Maybe I think some environments, but 98% environments I think we cannot able to go with the data guards and all these setups. But suddenly if the database is going wrong, like so it's something going wrong and database completely crashed. So now the question is actually how quickly we can initiate a restore job, right? So maybe on the development systems, we not be able to, people are going to run multiple backup copies on the same, multiple databases on the systems, and they do multiple backups, and generally they will not maintain on the backups on the storage on the local system. And definitely I think you need to depend on the your maybe you need to send this backups to the other storage devices, right? So assume that even though the it is in the tape, and again it has to need to spend some time to restore from the tape. And this question is actually how quickly we can initiate restore jobs. Are you in a position to start restore job within 5 minutes? No. Within 10 minutes? No. Because you need to spend some time and understand whether these backup copies are correct, what is happening, and let me see, and how, let me prepare some script and see, and it's going to kick off that. So Actifio is also additionally offering this solution and using this GUI. And whenever a situation occurs and you wanted to restore the database from a backup copy, and you wanted to restore a particular complete the database has disaster occurs and you wanted to restore the DB, and you can just use a GUI feature and you select again the same backup latest backup image and do select restore operation, and the restore tab appears, and you can have a roll forward time, and you can recover based on your RPO logs. You can select this roll forward time option and do the recovery, right? The moment you perform the recovery, it is going to take, because when you say restore operation, right, because the restore is you're expecting to create the restore data file copies on your storage. That's how a restore actually works, right? It is not a simple clone environment. It is the restore. We are actually copying the database backup copies from the Actifio storage area to onto your storage. So restore is going to spend pretty much the additional time. But here you need to understand that how quick you can initiate the restore option, right? So this you can achieve using Actifio just in a GUI way. Okay, now let us see the continuation with this and how to reduce a disaster time. This is very interesting, right? So there is a storage issue occurred, and unfortunately I don't have a data guard, or I have a data guard and both primary and data guard solution are using the similar storage. Assume that. Or maybe we are not in a position to bring up the data guard environment, having some issues. So how do you handle this disaster? Now you need to bring up your database, your storage is gone, right? And you need to work with the storage admins and get it repaired and corrected, then go to recent backup and restore it again. And imagine that your database size is, say, minimum it is a 10 terabyte. I'm not talking about 20 or 30, just it is a 10 terabyte. And just imagine how long you need to spend to repair this and all these things, right? And application, say it is a critical online application or maybe a e-commerce application or a banking application, it's completely dead, it's gone. So you cannot, you're definitely, I think, it's not going to meet SLEs, right, in this situation, because it's completely an uncontrolled situation. And another place, and if you wanted to migrate your current database from the old storage to the new storage, which is very common quite scenario, like when the new storage having the, we are getting a storage agnostic technologies, and maybe we are migrating storage from one storage to get a better performance, right? And how do you handle even this situation? And let us see how Actifio handles this situation. And we actually providing a solution called some switch and rebalance, and we called it a switch and rebalance feature. And using the switch and rebalance, and you can achieve this by a graphical user interface. Okay, a normal admin guy, even maybe a junior admin, able to perform this activity by just clicking 2 clicks. Okay, and you got a complaint from your your end developers are saying that your database is ready, and you understand that database storage has got completely corrupted, right? And when you are selecting this switch and rebalance operation, so what we are going to do is actually, the moment you, this is your traditional environment, right? And left hand side, you can see your Oracle database server and production storage. And whereas right hand side and the diagram, you can see Actifio appliance with some image copies, some backup copies on the Actifio snap pool as well, right? So in this case, if a disaster occurs, what is going to happen? So your storage is completely gone now, right? So no one is able to, none of the applications are able to access this storage or access your Oracle. So now you come to Actifio, and we just given a feature called in a AGM, which is Actifio Global Manager, which is completely a GUI feature. And using this AGM, you just select a switch option in AGM for that particular database. And with a lower RTO you are providing, and with instant scalable recovery, and instantly we are providing a instant recovery copy onto the storage on your production database, right? With the same database name, so that application can continually running. The moment we inform to the Actifio and we just click the switch, and it is going to create a switch copy, it's going to create a virtual cloned copy on your database with the same name, like what is your source database name. But the only difference here, we are using a Actifio snap pool storage because your storage is currently corrupted. But still it is okay. You are avoiding completely a downtime, right? Within 20 minutes or 25 minutes, you can bring up your application. All applications will be up and running. And then once your storage get corrupted, like it was repaired by storage admins or replaced with a new storage, then you just click another option, rebalance, right? The moment rebalance occurs, and you can see this, all the data from Actifio, it is moving to your storage using in a rebalance method, and it's a completely online transparent operation. So I think we can proudly say that this is a wonderful feature. And if your disaster occurs, we are instantly providing this recovery on your database using a switch option. You just need to connect to the AGM, which is a GUI, and one more browser GUI, graphical browser GUI, browser interface, and click a switch on the corresponding application, and it is going to create a virtual copy on your database server with the same name, and your application can start running with that. And the moment the database storage has got repaired or maybe replaced and adjusted, then you just select one more option, rebalance, and we are going to rebalance the data from Actifio to your storage, which is completely transparent, right? And just imagine if it is really happening. So if it is really a situation happens, definitely I think we cannot bring, if it is a database size is say 20 terabyte or 30 terabyte, I think we need to spend maybe if you're working and completely and coordinating with all the teams and maybe hotlines opening and also maybe I think maybe 3 days or maybe 4 days with respect with maybe a database size. But we are instantly allowing you to open your database and start your applications up and running, and later once you're ready, then you go a row rebalance operation, right? Okay, now I think the regarding to the data guard, right? So I think this is not maybe a complete one, but I just wanted to give what Actifio is really giving a wonderful facility along with all the facilities as part of replication, right? So managing these logs or maybe managing these data guard environments, you might be need multiple resources to handle this, and something going wrong, and you need to recover these standby environments multiple times. And how do you efficiently? And again, if you want to, if your source database is completely, if your source database is, you're taking backups from your source database, and you wanted to create, and you don't want to interrupt your source database in a traditional way. I wanted to create a backup on my production, my primary, my standby, and use that backup. I want to create a cloned copy. And exactly, we offer the same solution here. So Actifio offers a replication process, and replication process not only at DB level. So this replication, like it could be at VM level or a file system level or a SQL or Oracle, the many levels. I'm just talking about Oracle now. So using this, so as we discussed about earlier, say Actifio appliance, which is in your premises or maybe in cloud, and you can have this Actifio appliance, right? And you can have the similar Actifio appliance you can maintain on the DR side as well, along with your primary. It is associated or attached with your primary database, and you can have one more appliance on the DR as well, right? And you can replicate the data using this Actifio replication techniques. You can intelligently, you can maintain your retentions, and you can replicate the data, and you can even perform the log replication. You can enable to replicate the logs and keep the log copies, and for some more additional retention on the DR, right? So these all things requires and just a GUI, and you just need to enter a couple of details, source and target, and just click and save it, and your replication is ready, right? And you don't need to worry about and whether this logs are really applying or not, because which is completely a jobs based, and you can able to see this. If jobs are failing, you can able to quickly monitor it. You can able to quickly understand the jobs are failure. Okay, and you can able to take a preventive action immediately, right? And you don't need to spend a lot of time on rebuilding the data guard environments multiple times. If the recovery was doing something wrong and the data guard environment, there was a corruption issue, or maybe there is a log gap issues which we could not able to find, you need to spend a lot of time on your incremental backups and all this stuff you need to maintain. separate maybe a pool of DBAs to deal all these situations. You can avoid using this Actifio replication, enabling the Actifio replication, right? So, and is not, and the beauty is actually does not require any storage or a vendor license, as the data is sent from the Actifio appliance to the another appliance. It eliminates the licensing as well. And we do support when we are actually sending data in the form in the replication, and we do support encrypting the data with AES 256 encryption standards. And we follow all security standards. We'll guarantee you that your data is surely secured between the appliances, right? So let us see what replication methods Actifio is offering. And Actifio is offering the two types of replication methods, which is the stream snap replication and dedupe async replication. The simple difference, and go with a stream snap replication, and if you have a high bandwidth capacity between the appliances, right? As I mentioned in the previous slides, your primary appliance and the DR appliance, and you can enable a logs replication or maybe a backups replication to the DR appliance using these two replication techniques. Either it is a stream snap or a dedupe sync, right? So when you are going with a stream snap replication, right, you just to set up SLA to replicate data using the stream snap on the primary appliance level. So the moment you done this, and the second step, your data is getting replicated directly from the local snap pool to the remote snap pool, right? Because we have two appliances now. On the primary side, we have one Actifio appliance. On the DR side, we have Actifio appliance. Now your data is getting replicated directly from the local snap pool to the remote snap pool, right? And you can use, the moment it is get transferred to the remote snap pool, again, those images are available using Actifio GUA. You can able to view those DR images, and using these images, you can perform instant recoveries. It's nothing but you can create a cloned copies as well. Okay, and this is a stream snap technology. And whereas other technology, which is a dedupe async, which is called as a DAR, dedupe async replication, and you set up SLA like stream snap on the primary appliance, and instead of getting the images copied from the snap pool to the remote snap pool, the snap pool images getting copied to the dedupe pool, and it is going to deduplicated and compressed and encrypted. It is going to transfer to the remote dedupe pool, and again, from the remote dedupe, we need to rehydrate the data or inflate the data, because it is a deduplicated and decompressed data. So we need to rehydrate the data, put into the snap pool back, right? So now the question is when to choose a dedupe and when to choose stream snap. And if you have a high bandwidth capacity, if you're able to allow the high bandwidth capacity between the two appliances, that is primary and DR, go with stream snap. And if you have concerns about the bandwidth and you don't have that much capacity on the bandwidth, go with a dedupe async replication, right? So, but when you are going with a stream snap replication, the images will be available more immediately onto the remote appliance, because you're sending these images from snap pool to snap pool in a high bandwidth mode, right? So you don't need to rehydrate the data when you're using stream snap, right? You don't need to inflate the data basically from dedupe. When you're using a dedupe, you have to inflate the data on the remote side from the dedupe image to the snap pool, and it needs some time trying to rehydrate the data or inflate the data, which is decompressed or which is deduplicated. But even here also, once the dedupe image is actually on the appliance, target appliance side or DR appliance side, which is available on the snap pool on the DR, and you can use that images as like a same how we are using instant recoveries on the primary side, how we are using the images for instant, you can use the similar way. Now the interesting portion, so failover and sync back, which is exactly at this moment, I think Actifio is still in a deep R&D phase on that, completely like a switchover and failover method, which is kind of a failover and sync back, which is a kind of a planned downtime. And you just need to, whenever you're having this planned downtime, when you're enable the replication between primary and DR appliance for this particular database, and using this method, and you can perform a failover operation from the remote appliance image, and it will create a image onto the remote host system on the DR host system, which you are attaching to the DR or your database host I'm talking about. And using this host, and at this moment, I think Actifio is not fully automated at this area. I think shortly, I think we are launching a complete automation one. So the moment you perform a failover operation on the remote host, it is going to create an image on the failover host. And we just need to manually recover this image and use that image for your database operations. You can point all your applications connecting to the database and make your changes and all. Okay, then take a small downtime when it is available, and again you just need to manually do a sync back operation, and it is going to create an image back onto the production system which is corrupted, and use a manual approach to just bring up the database, and which we are going to shortly release an automated way. In this, even failover and sync back you can achieve completely in an automated way. Okay, and this is an example actually when you are performing a failover and sync back, how it looks like actually. Say for example, this is a remote, you can see remote snap here, and this remote snap, and we are, because this is enabled with a stream snap application, and you can see snaps are copied from the primary snap pool to the remote snap pool, so that you can able to see a snap image under remote snap, and you can select a failover operation for this image, and you will get a screen like this, and where you want to perform this failover operation on the which target host, and you select and submit, and it is going to complete a failover operation. At failover, the moment it completes a failover operation, it creates a image like a drive on the target host, which I have selected a Windows machine as part of this, and you can see the image which is created. And using this image, you can up the database manually, because all the artifacts are available now. And we do provide a CLI command, which is a small single line command. You can bring up the database automatically, right? Now failover is completed. And you can able to see this. Once the failover is completed, you can see a rubber ribbon banner here on the top right corner, and failover mode. And now you're operating in a failover mode, and the database is ready, and maybe people, and you can up your applications and pointing to this database, and they can query and they can do whatever they want operations. And again, take a downtime once your production system is back, and once your production system is rebuilt, once it is ready with the database software, and select this image on the remote snap, which you are currently using by the development team. You just stop for a few minutes and do a sync back. Again, it's reversely, it is going to create an image under the production side, and using this manual CLI command, you can bring up the database. As I mentioned earlier, right, as of now, I think it is a manual process when you're doing a failover, but which we are going to release an automated way completely shortly, very shortly. So this restore method on the production, once you are doing a sync back, it is going to create an image on the production host. You can see that production image under sync back image as a sync back image here. You can able to see clearly, and you do a restore, it is going to create the restore onto the production, right? So it is similarly the way we are offering. It's similarly like a data guard way. I think it's maybe a bit different, but I think we are achieving the same. At the end, we are achieving the same, the functionality. We are not losing the data, and we are going to achieve the same functionality. And using this, I think you don't worry about your log replication and your recovery, what is happening and all. But if there is a critical, like you wanted to run your reporting environment and analytics environment, you can do on the remote appliance using that. You can do an app aware mount and use it for the reporting purpose as well. And now let us see the topic, which is Actifio CLI, right? Command line interface methods. And most of the DBAs are maybe very user friendly to work with the command line interfaces, right? Because the DB administration is completely a command line options, and maybe people are tending to work with the command line options rather than GUI. And we do provide the solutions in a command line interface. You exactly achieve the same support, same activities, and you can do all activities which you are performing using a desktop, and you can do similar activities using the CLI database management tool, which we called as a shortly Act2DBM, which is Actifio database management tool. You can protect your databases, you can perform backups, you can do instant clones, you can set up workflows, and all these operations you can achieve using the CLI database management tool. And you don't need to worry about like developing many scripts. This is fully configured database management tool. You just need to prepare a small shell script to just call these options to perform these backups and all, wherever you want to perform, on which host you want to perform, and a couple more small parameters you just need to modify here and there. And apart from that, CLI is very user friendly. You can use this and along with GUI, and you see the awesome benefit with CLI as well to automate when you're automating the things. Okay, and I'm done with, and I'm handing out to the Dave. And thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Shridhar. That was stellar. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to stick around for another 15 minutes or so. We did have some questions that I wanted to get to you. Folks, if you need to disconnect and move on with your day, this presentation is complete. You will be receiving both a copy of the video and the slide deck that was presented today. If you do have some time and you wanted to stick around for the Q&A, please feel free. But the core presentation is over at this point. So now we'll dive into the question queue a bit. And I'm actually going to work backwards just so I can get to them all. First question is, can we perform a failover into a standby data guard server from the primary?
Yep. I think here, if you understand, so this replication we are enabling from the Actifio, right? When you're enabling stream snap replication, we are maintaining these images on the primary side and the DR appliance side. And if the question, so as I explained, we are performing a failover from the standby, and if the question is if the standby is running as a primary, and can we perform the failover operations from the primary? Yes, vice versa, and make sure that, and before that you protected the and both, and your replication is enabled, and you can able to do vice versa as well.
Great, thank you. The next question is, does Actifio tools and scripts work with container DBs?
That's a good question. So Actifio, we do offer, actually you can protect and you can do instant recoveries even for your pluggable databases and even container databases, right? So we do actually scalable to support your container databases as well.
Great, and this one, I believe that this one is actually a CDS or Sky configuration, but I wanted to raise it with you in case there's any Oracle specific details we should talk about. And the question here is, how can we run a log backup to prevent an archive log stall without queuing the job when another job? So basically what we've got is we've got a job running on the Oracle instance, and we also want to run an archive log capture. It sounds like for this user, what's happening is it's causing, trying to run both of those concurrently is causing the job to queue. Now, I believe that we can just increase the maximum amount of jobs per host to 2 to rectify this. However, are there any specific Oracle concerns around doing this?
So since we are taking a consistent backup, so that's the reason I think we are allowing you to run only one backup job at a time for the particular application. So otherwise we are going to miss the consistency, right? So that's the reason I think we are allowing you to run the whichever is the first it was kicked off, and we are allowing you to run the corresponding application. I'm talking about only one application. So one backup job, like archaeolog backup job, can be triggered at a time, at one time, or maybe when backup job was running, you cannot able to run your archaeolog backup because you are going to miss the consistency. So end of the day, we do provide the consistency as part of the instant clones and all, right? So it is very important.
So if we do require application consistency, exactly, that is the cause for the limitation, resulting in only one job running at a time.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, just we did have one or two from further back. Let me just make sure. I don't want anybody to go unanswered. And again, folks, if your question is missed, I will be looking through here and we will contact you via email. All right, the next question is, okay, and this is actually a restatement of a question that we answered earlier. I asked you the wrong question, so I will ask it correctly this time. So the question here is, if I can restore the database just with the core physical structure and restore one table space where my table is located, is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. Do an AppAware mount, right? So you will get all the when you do a standard mount instead of AppAware mount on the source host where we have the problem, and you will get all the artifacts like the data file copies and the archaeolog backup copies and the server parameter file, control file, which I explained earlier, right? You just need to catalog and these data file location, and you just need to catalog archaeologs, and you restore the table space and recover the table space.
Okay, and so with the Actifio, what would you do if the DBA deleted the archives directly from the RMAN API? Could we help recover from that?
Yep. Here I need to answer a couple more. I need to discuss like a couple more points here, right?
Take your time.
So when this is a scenario, right? Here you're asking Actifio to take the Actifio log backups, right? You're actually, along with your incremental backups, DB plus log incremental backups, you're also enabling Actifio log smart policy to run the archaeolog backups, right? And to maintain a roll forward time recovery, these archaeolog backups are very important. And if someone is deleted, which are not backed up by Actifio yet, because these files are physically located, initially these are physically located, main archaeologs are physically located on the source database server, which Actifio cannot control it. But Actifio, when it is coming to the backup, and it is definitely backing up all the archaeologs which are not going to miss any single of archaeologs. But if there is a problem, it's a genuine question, like there is a space issues might be, and accidentally I think they need to delete the archaeologs, you know. So, and we need to remember one thing, we need to have a checkpoint in this case, because the moment you delete archaeologs, if you are selecting any backup image prior to that from Actifio, and if you are trying to perform a roll forward recovery, and in that roll forward recovery, if it is looking for the archaeologs which are deleted by the user, definitely I think even not only Actifio, none of the tools can be recovered, right? Unless the archaeologs are available. It cannot be actually recovered by Actifio, since it is not even comes under Actifio at once.
Great, and I think that about covers it. There's a couple more that I will take care of. Does anybody else have any questions before we close out for the day? We'll just wait for just a moment just to see if anything else pops up in the queue here. Okay, we do have one. Can Actifio backup backup pieces of native RMAN files?
Yes, it is a native. I think if you remember my slide, Actifio copy data virtualization, when I'm explaining capture, manage, and use process. So we capture the data at block level in a native pristine format. So the data files are in native data file format. Yep, correct.
Alrighty. Is the failover option available on our V7? Is it available before V8?
Sorry, Dave, can you please repeat the question?
Sure. The failover option that you demonstrated. What version do you need to be at to have access to that feature? Is that a 7.1 and newer, I believe?
Okay, Actifio connector version. Sorry. So I think this failover option, I think, is available starting from 7.1 version, 7.1.x.
Great. And Luisa, I'm going to ask you to rephrase your question. The question is no RMAN backup pieces. Could I ask you to just rephrase that, and we'll hang in here for a second while you type that out?
Yep.
So again, folks, while we're waiting for the question queue to pop up here, the core of the presentation is over, and we'll certainly be getting you a copy of everything presented here today. And in just a day or two, you will see the invitations with the registration link for the advanced Oracle webinar. If today wasn't quite advanced enough for you, we actually go deeper into the technical portion of this in 2 weeks. So if that's something that appeals to you, please make sure that you sign up for that. Okay, so the question is, if you take an RMAN backup, could Actifio have backed them up and recognize the backup pieces? So it sounds like we're doing it in chunks. Would the Actifio recognize that these were all components of a larger thing?
Sorry, Dave, I think you could not understand the question properly. Maybe framing wise, I could not able to recognize the question completely. So could you please send me an email so that maybe we can respond through email?
Sure, Luisa, we will. I'll get these questions over to Shridhar, and we'll have an answer for you in your email in the next 48 hours or so. Alrighty, folks. So just to kind of wrap up everything that we've covered here today, I do appreciate you sticking in here. I realize that we said about an hour, and we're at about 90 minutes now. So some of the key points here are enumerated here on the last slide. The Actifio incremental forever backup architecture really stops you from having to take these large data movements, moving multi-terabyte instances around. With the incremental model, we're just going to grab the change blocks, which are generally going to be measured in gigabytes, barring something like a database reindex. I do like to bring this up. If you do need to reindex one of your Oracle databases, we will come out of the incremental forever model. We will do a new ingest, and then we will continue on into the incremental forever model. You can manually manipulate your staging disks to make sure that you don't really run out. However, that reindex really changes the data so much that we do kind of see it as new, and we do like to reindex everything to make sure we've got a count on every bit and byte in that instance. You can also use the Actifio SLA architect to really replace a ton of scripts, pages and pages, lines and lines of relatively complex scripts. And really, if you kind of dig into the SLA architect, we've got a great 1-hour webinar on our YouTube channel on everything regarding the SLA architect. We can really replace all of that extensive scripting with, as Shridhar said, just a few clicks, fill in a few parameters, and all that scripting obligation goes away. This is probably one of the most friendly UIs we've ever seen as far as how to manipulate Oracle instances. So I understand a lot of Oracle DBAs are very comfortable in the command line, as you should be as an Oracle DBA. However, for simplicity's sake and to remove some of the friction that people often encounter when trying to integrate Oracle with a data management service like Actifio, we've really gone through some pretty extensive testing and analysis to make sure that we give you everything that we can right in the UI. I will urge anybody who's on earlier versions of 7, I would at least get to 7.1. But really, I would go to 8 and I would take a look at AGM. That's going to unlock a huge feature set that if you've been an Actifio user for some time, maybe back in the 6X days, it's going to almost feel like a whole new product. It'll look familiar, but there's a ton more in there. And it's a great way of handling your clones in an automated fashion. You don't have to go in and manually execute scripts anymore or rely on crons. We'll handle the whole thing for you. If you have a DBA who blows away tables, we'll just bring it back. So again, folks, thanks for joining us today. The advanced webinar will be coming in 2 weeks. We did discuss a lot today. I mentioned the report manager as a way to verify things a few times in chat. We discussed the SLA architect. We have great webinars as well as quick little 5-minute videos. If you just need a refresher, head on over to our YouTube channel at YouTube/C/Actifio enablement team. And all of those are there for you, free to view. Feel free to download them, share them among your colleagues, and let us know. Let us know how you like them. Let us know what else you want, and we'll make that content and make it available to you. And that concludes our presentation for today. Thanks for coming, folks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us for another YouTube Tech Tip video. If you like the content you're seeing on this channel, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you will be alerted to any future content.